old, having these terrible problems with the periods, and then a red lady because the water was too hot. And so I used to get very nervous around my period time, wondering what was the right temperature. I could never quite pick it.
But there's one thing that girls we still have to remember, no matter how we feel, is that we've all got to learn and try to do as we are told. Oh, that's one of the hardest things to learn, isn't it? Learning to do as we are told. Learning to be obedient. And if we are obedient and we talk to Mother and we do as Mother suggests, then we'll be pretty right, I think.
The ladies bow, the gents bow, and just swing that corner girl. And you leave her on the right and you circle to the left, go round.
To keep us obediently off the streets, church fellowships around the country fostered square dancing nights.
Did you
have those square dance lessons?
Yeah, after school.
The girls do this, you always feel the rustle of newspaper in their bras.
Yeah, that's right.
Something else. I mean, those bras, the trainer bras, you've got to train a bra.
Train to get what?
Attention.
It is this balanced interaction of the sex and pituitary glands that brings about normal development. If the functioning of the glands is not balanced, the adolescent may differ from others of the same age. For instance, the girl who reaches sexual maturity earlier than her friends may get the reputation of being boy crazy. Actually, the behavior that bothers her friends may be the result of early glandular activity.
Each time we have a quarrel, it almost breaks my heart, 'cause I'm so afraid that we will have to part. Each night I ask the stars above, why must I be a teenager in love?
I remember the first time I bought condoms, and I was meeting a girl up in Woy Woy, and I was at Central Railway on crutches because I'd broken an ankle. And at that time there were about 4 chemist shops along that railway square and down into George Street. And I was hobbling because I could see that the time of the train was leaving on the big clock at Central. And I was hobbling along, and every chemist shop I came into was a young girl serving. And I get another, toothbrush, and I'm hobbling along, trying to hold all these toothbrushes and the crutches, desperately looking at the clock. And eventually I went back to one of the chemist shops where I'd bought a toothbrush and walked in and just said to the girl, I'd like a packet of wet checks. I got them and hobbled off.
Really fast.
Did you catch the train?
Yes, I caught the train and the girl.
Oh. And had really clean teeth.
When you did start going to parties, you do the wild rock and roll, and then at 10 o'clock, somebody would turn out the light. And then you'd sort of press bodies and everyone would sort of mooch around, and then the parents would come in at some point and the lights would go on and everyone sort of spring apart. It was always the same records and always the same food. Did you boys have strategies for undoing braziers?
Oh, yes. If you couldn't do it, it was, you were despised. But, of course, no one admitted to not being able to do it. It was just,
didn't make you embarrassed?
No. Oh, no.
Oh, really?
Oh, no. By the time you get halfway there, you're in an absolute mad tunnel vision. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, we used to be lectured about that. We used to be told by our headmistress that when from the age of about 14 that men got to a point where they became animals and you couldn't stop them. And, that's why you wouldn't let them get to that point because otherwise, they were unstoppable.
Yes.
Another aspect of normal growth is nervous tension, which makes Johnny restless. He may twitch and squirm when he tries to sit still.
After sex, the big issue in adolescence was self-consciousness, how to behave in public.
This new ratio of bone to muscles upsets his coordination. This embarrasses him just when he is trying his best to be grown up.
At the age of 16, my parents obviously thought I was a hopeless case, and so they sent me off to June Dally Watkins School of Modelling. And I learned very important things like how to get in and out of a car. gracefully and how to stand up and sit down gracefully and how to speak in rounded vowels. None of it seemed to work for me. I still looked like me.
I'd never eat in front of my boyfriend. We'd buy a pie at the station and I wouldn't sit with him. I'd go away and eat and then come back.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would never eat in front of
Paris. Yeah, you weren't supposed to eat.
No.
Yes.
Go to the toilet.
Blow your
Yeah,
nose
you're
or
very
sneeze and anything.
I remember distinctly the first time I heard a girl fart. I'd always believed they didn't. I thought it was just something mental.
Excuse me, dear.
We're actually in a phone booth. And I'd
It's popular as a fart in a phone booth.
I lifted her up to sit her onto the sort of shelf. Her up and she farted. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, this is most revolting. My mother never did it.
The early 60s promised a new cosmopolitan world of sophistication.
The future. What does it hold? The conquest of space? Interplanetary travel where our very existence is governed by speed? A world which is ever on the move, shrinking time to bring our continents closer together. A city as modern as its era, Sydney in the future. A city of gigantic plastic domes, of concrete platforms and skyways, of machines that see beyond the bounds of sight. Is this what we would see if we could look into the future? Sydney now is stretching out for this future. It's a working city, a playing city, a growing, striving, good to be alive in city.
In the early 60s, the thought of race riots or war in Asia seemed far away. It was a picture that looked set to last forever, impervious to change. But a new mood was developing. The folk music craze mushroomed in the early 60s and gave us our first taste of mass protest. The signs that something wasn't quite right. Many of us were leaving school and getting jobs, but a record number were going to uni. And that's when it all seemed to change. In 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated. It was a world away, another country, but we all seemed to remember where we were when we heard the news. And in that moment, there seemed a loss of innocence. The 50s seemed like the last golden time before that dread realization cast us out of the Garden of Eden. It was a moment when the world fragmented into those warring tribes that have since been our history.
You have an admiring friend, a staunch friend, that will be all the way with LBJ.
Had this barrel of death for the 20-year-olds where only certain ones and birthday dates came out. It was a dreadful time.
I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Skip the light fandango, turns cartwheels across the floor.
This will be an open administration.
I was feeling kind of seasick.
It's on about, how one can ever make the most of life being a woman.
The room was humming harder as the ceiling flew away. When we called out
Well, may we say, God save the Queen, because nothing will save the Governor-General.
These days, it's often said, look at them now. They too have settled down in the suburbs like their parents did. But there is a difference. We're richer, we breed later, we have fewer kids, and women have careers. We're not anchored anymore. We're not at home. We've lost our address. Many of us have the sort of financial security that our parents spent their whole lives struggling to achieve. Most of us have more possessions than our parents did, more variety, more choice in what we eat and see and travel to. But is there something missing? Some feeling of old acquaintance long forgotten, in green backyards that went on forever, and dear friends that could be relied on?
There was really only one rule when we were children, and that was you had to be home when the street lights came on. And there was this terrible thing, you'd be walking down the street and the street lights would go on and you'd realise you should have been home. And there was still 5 minutes, you know, coming, you'd have to run home for your life.
We were really free and easy. I mean, we used to disappear straight after breakfast on Saturday morning and reappear for tea at night. And in that time, we would have covered miles and miles riding around on our bikes, totally, you know, unaware of any danger.
In those days, you could ride your bike around the corner and visit your friends, and there's much more of a sense of community, whereas now it's locking up the doors and making sure that, you know, you're not going to be broken into. Or
for insurance purposes, they make you actually put bars on the windows, that sort of thing. Whereas my mother wouldn't have, or she put a note saying key under the ironing mat.
And they're always the same neighbours. I mean, everybody knew them. You called them Auntie Joan and Auntie and Uncle Bill. I mean, that's how the relationships were, like those of extended family. And you ate in their houses and you drifted in and out. So
yes, you drifted in and out.
And if your mum wasn't home when you got home from school, you'd go across to the neighbours who'd just automatically feed you.
Yeah, exactly.
I found my thrill